my friends, and welcome to episode 117 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone. Tonight is one of those special nights for us. Every time we have special guests, we ask ourselves the question, which topic should we be focusing on? With this episode's guest, there's so much ground to cover that it would be almost impossible to respect the 1 hour frame. Check this out. American singer, bassist, guitarist, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, producer, and entertainment executive. He has appeared on over 200 albums, has collaborated with 5 artists inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and has sold in excess of 40 million records as an artist, producer, and songwriter. Still one more, he has a strong connection to Kiss. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jean Beauvoir to our show. Nice to have you, Jean.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, guys. I am.
No, it's so cool to have you on the show, Jean. I remember a few years ago, I saw you at the New Jersey Kiss Expo. I don't remember which one, but I think it was maybe the one with Ace. I'm not sure.
Yes, it was, because we actually played on stage. Yeah,
That's right. Yes, how can I forget that? My goodness. But, you know, I remember being so impressed with your long list of accomplishments. And I thought, you know, on this episode, where are we going to start? You know?
That's right.
But, you know, every story has a beginning. So let's start at the beginning. So how and when, Jean, did you get into music?
Well, I started very, very young. I probably realized it at around 10 years old that I was really into it. 11, 12, I was already pretty much sold. And at 13, around that time, I started messing around in school, of course, with the recorder and whatever they offered, you know, which was a little bit late. No, the recorder was around that time. And then after that, I actually ended up forming a junior high school rock band because I had started playing as a drummer. That's my first instrument, was drums, to be honest. And I started messing around 11 or so doing that, 12 messing around. And by 13, I found a teacher in our school who was a rock guy, and he had opened for The Who once.
Oh, wow.
His claim to fame. And he would always talk about it. So he said, why don't we form a little rock band in school, like a school of rock, very similar to what we had at the School of Rock now, where we just would have a certain amount of kids from the school play, and maybe 3 singers, 3 drummers, whatever, whoever wanted to get involved. I mean, there was auditions and there was a limit, and just to get them into a band kind of frame of mind, and then we'd play at the dances and stuff like that in school. So that was the beginning. We did that, and it was successful. So that same year, I started to continue, or 14, I turned to 14. I enjoyed it so much. I kept the band going. And next thing you know, I ended up getting Gary U.S. Bond's manager. Right. Actually came to see me in a club. Yes, this was 15 when it was, because I missed something. I went from drums to bass. I forgot that part. When I was messing around with drums, my dad didn't like it too much. So one day he came.
Too much noise, right?
Exactly. He threw the drums down the stairs and out the door. So my drumming career was over. At that point, my brother was starting to mess around with bass, and he had a bass in his room. So I started to take it and start to practice. But for real, I was like spend days playing bass. From there, I joined a junior high school rock band. And then we started doing that. For that, I actually played drums first in the rock band, but then moved to, you know, being a bass player and
bassist.
Singer. Okay. Yeah. And that's kind of how it all started. And then I started touring at 15 with Gary U.S. Bond.
Oh, wow. At 15 years old. And the Flamingos came after that, right?
That's right. The Flamingos, because with Gary U.S. Bond was an oldie for those who don't know. He was he had a song called Quarter to Three, and he was from the 60s. So he was very popular. He had #1 hit back then. And again, he had another hit with Bruce Springsteen and Steven Van Zandt. What's the song called? This Little Girl Is Mine.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
was, and that became a big hit. I think it went #5 in America, and it was a hit all over the world. And that was, long after. So it's funny how it ended up turning around. The same guy who found me at 15, ended up with Little Steven and Bruce Springsteen and the whole thing much later, after the Plasmatics, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Flamingos were after that. And when I was with Gary, we'd play all these oldies shows. So we'd do the Dick Clark festivals, which had all of these hit makers. And that was quite an experience doing that. And from there, I had met the Flamingos, who heard me sing, and they asked me if I'd join them as a singer.
Wow. As a singer. Okay,
as a
wow.
singer.
Oh,
so I joined
goodness.
them as one of the singers. And there was, we had a bass singer. They're very interesting. They're one of the best vocal groups ever. I don't know if you remember I Only Have Eyes for You.
Yeah, the harmonies
That was their big hit.
Yeah.
Harmonies were fantastic. So that's where I think I got a lot of my basics from Gary U.S. Bonds, who was a great, coach and mentor.
Of
and
course.
From there, being a lead singer with the Flamingos was just an amazing experience. We were already playing in Las Vegas and singing to, women at tables in casinos. it was pretty interesting, and it was quite a childhood.
Wow.
Quite a childhood.
So since early on, you started playing in the first league. That's awesome. It's unbelievable.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Hey, Jean, and then you moved to New York during the punk rock explosion when you were still very young. So what happened? Just tell us what happened after you answered a newspaper ad for a bassist. This is getting really interesting.
Okay. Well, yes, after the whole Gary U.S. Bonds, Flamingos, and all of this, I had a weird situation that my apartment where I was living in New Jersey at the time burnt down. And I got there, and the building was gone. Completely, all my things, everything was gone. And I remember that the city was giving out some help. So they gave me $125 check, basically, to do whatever you want, to help you out. So I used that to go buy a motorcycle jacket on Canal Street, the regular stock motorcycle jacket. I always wanted one. I felt that way. So I moved to New York, ended up playing with a group. It was called NYN. We opened for the Plasmatics.
No.
Plasmatics. Yeah, I got to a place called my father's place on Long Island, but that was the beginning of the Plasmatics. They were just starting to make some noise. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I saw an ad not long after that said, Plasmatics looking for a bassist.
Okay.
I said, I'd rather sing and do this, but let me check this out. So I called, and the manager, Ron Swenson, he basically told me, yes, I remember you, because we had spoken that time when we did the show. He said, we're auditioning bass players. So it took a little while because they auditioned a lot of bass players. And then finally they called me and they told me, if you want the job, it's yours. And then that was it.
Oh my goodness.
So that was the beginning.
Over the years, we've seen some really cool footage, of the Plasmatics live shows, and the band was truly over the top. So you guys, you did some crazy stuff on stage.
I know.
So can you share some of the details?
Oh God, it was crazy. The band was sensationalism. It was really about trying to, for one thing, there was kind of a message to show that material things didn't have as much value as people put on it. That's why she smashed televisions and blew up cars and all kinds of things like that. But we did a lot of crazy things in the shows. We did blow up cars, like I said. She would chainsaw a guitar. We had one tour where we had chickens coming out of the ceiling because she'd have a shotgun. She shot up in the air, and from the lighting truck, boxes open and chickens came down on stage and started running around.
Seriously.
That was a great, and the chickens toured with us. And they had names like Gertrude and this and that. It was fantastic. We saved them from getting slaughtered for a while by taking them on a rock and roll tour.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we did. So there were a lot of things that we did. It was a Cadillac. We blew up a police car, a Milwaukee police car after we were arrested. It was an amazing show. And for people who haven't seen it, they should go watch like the Pier 62 show that we did in New York, where she basically drove a car from about 50 yards from the stage. The stage was built on a Sunday, right on the Hudson River.
Okay.
And we expected, like, I think we had a permit for like 3,000 to 5,000 people, and I believe like 20,000 people showed up, and they were on all the rooftops, all of New York. It was quite the scene. We came down in a helicopter. All the news channels were there. Everybody, Eyewitness News and all the different channels. And she drove this car into the stage. All the equipment blew up. Everything went into the Hudson River.
Oh my God.
And we had to hire frogmen for almost 2 weeks to go down and get everything out, because that was the deal with the city.
Right. Wow.
But you know what, Jean, besides, I don't know if I should call it gimmicks or, these unpredictable things that you guys were doing on stage, there were some really cool music, man, with you guys, the good songs, man. So that was really, really one of the top, punk rock bands in the world.
Thank you. I'm glad that you felt that way, because I think that sometimes all the, sensationalism takes away from that, and people don't see that. But I tell people sometimes that playing bass with the Plasmatics was probably the hardest job as a bass player. To be honest with you, sometimes, just because of the speed of things, for one thing. Yeah. And you were kind of, I would incorporate different types of bass lines. It's almost, we had a song like Master Plan. It sounds like almost like a Motown punk bass line, but you have to play it at the speed,
fast.
And jumping up and down, and things blowing up and slipping, and it was
and keep it
pretty
cool,
crazy. That's looking cool. You got a lot of things to focus on. It's like, try to not get shot by Wendy when she turns around with a shotgun. So it was quite the scene, but it was fun, and crazy audiences. We had the best fans. It was just wonderful. Really, really great fans. Well, I don't know if they're best fans. Those Kiss fans are pretty good.
Kiss fans are pretty special.
Pretty special, I gotta say.
You know that.
But we had great fans. Let's put it that way.
So, needless to say, the Plasmatics went on to dominate the worldwide press with your legendary stage antics and rebellious punk rock message. Now, by this time, you started sporting the memorable blonde Mohawk, which became your trademark. Now, what was the fans' reaction to your look, specifically in the U.S.?
Well, the fans loved it, because the band, I think, visually really gave things to people. We had one album called New Hope for the Wretched, and it's almost like for the outcast, for people who are different and who want to do different things. We really believed in, be yourself, do what you want to do, look the way you want to look, and that's something that just do you. It's something I really believe in. And we're having Richie with the blue hair and all the crazy clothes. He wear nurse outfits or, the tutu, all kinds of things. Me in the suit with the white glasses and the thing, the different images. And Wendy, of course, I think it gave it a great, people didn't know where to look.
Yeah, good contrast.
So much, good, great contrast. And, also having a black guy in the band with a blonde mohawk, because at the beginning, like, I never saw like a black fan, maybe one or two, because I think they were kind of afraid that's not supposed to be listening. They're not supposed to be listening to this. They think they're supposed to listen to whatever. It wasn't. Hip hop was almost starting at that time, but in the end of the day, I saw that changed, and a lot of other people and other races and other things started coming to the shows, because they just felt like, everybody's welcome. Yes. So it was, and that really made a cool difference. So the fan loved it, but the people didn't like it. So when I was in New York, I would get so much trouble from blacks, especially, because they'd feel that the blonde hair was like going against our roots.
Oh,
It's
that you sold yourself. Okay, okay, wow.
how could you have that? How could you do that? Oh, you'd be almost fighting on the streets. It was a nightmare. They tried to kick me out of my apartment building. They were scaring people in the elevator.
Really? Wow.
Over hair.
Over hair. It was completely crazy. And still, all of a sudden, the band started to gain some success. Then all of a sudden, everything changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after all the TV shows and after everybody all saw it, then they wanted autographs instead of to
That's
kill you.
right. I want to hook up. That's right. I want to hook up with that guy. Of course. Of course.
You know, whenever
right.
whenever you make people feel uncomfortable, it just means that you're ahead of your time, and people have to catch up and become familiar with what's happening in the scene. And that's exactly what you did. You woke people up. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love the way you put that. I think that's right. And make people feel uncomfortable. It's because you're doing something that's ahead of the time.
Absolutely.
I'm going to remember that one. I like that. That's right.
So with the Plasmatics, you released 3 albums with the band, and then you decided to leave. Now, can we ask what happened? And did David Lee Roth have something to do with this?
Yes, it was. To be honest, it got to the point where I didn't feel. Well, at the beginning, when I first joined the band, I was told that there'd be no money for the first 6 months. But the band, things were going to happen with the band, and I actually believed it because I loved the concept. I really thought, and I liked the music. I thought that something could happen, and it did. So I did that for a while, and I didn't feel that we were really getting, what we're supposed to get.
Okay.
There was always a little bit of a question. And by the time we got to that 3rd album, we were asked to sign a new contract, and I wasn't willing to sign that new contract because it was for 5 years, and it would have locked me into things, not allow me to do anything else, etc. And I knew that I always wanted to do a solo career anyway. So I felt it was time, and also I knew that the band was taking a different direction. They were going more into a metal thing, which is what the manager wanted to do, and I didn't really agree with that. I felt that the Plasmatics had something unique, and we should stick to what we were good at, and not start to compete with Judas Priest. That was, you know what I mean? And Rob actually came to the show. He became a very good friend. But I'm just saying, and that's how I felt. And so I just, one day, that's it. And matter of fact, David Lee Roth did come to one of our biggest shows in California. And while I was having this conflict about contracts and everything, he came to the show. And my bodyguard came over at the time and said, "There's some band in the parking lot. I think it's Van Hoolen and something like that." He didn't know what. He didn't know. It was he just didn't know. So I said, "Van Halen? You mean Van Halen? Of course, bring them in." And so David came. It was Tim, and he came backstage. Came to see me. I still have a picture of that. It's actually in my new book, a picture of me and David. I still have that picture. He came and he said, "Man, after the show, I'm going to take you out and show you LA and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Great." So after the show, I went out with them. We went to all the clubs. We hung out and we started talking. And he said, "Man, with all this merchandising," because we were playing big numbers at that time. We played a place called Perkins Palace, plus was the Perkins Palace, the Civic Center. So we were getting, by the time you put all the numbers together, we were close to 100,000 people because we would do it differently. We'd play 10 nights here, 5 nights here, instead of playing an arena or a stadium, just because it created more havoc, because people would know for whatever 2 weeks. People are doing that now with residencies. We were doing it then, where we would do it where people would sleep on Sunset Boulevard and, because you were here for a while, and nights at the Whiskey. So he told me, "Wow, the merchant." "Oh, that's bad." He said, "That's bad." He said, "Van Halen's not doing what you're doing yet," but he says, "We're renting hotel room floors and we've got all kinds of things." And he said, "Maybe it's not the right thing for you. I think you should just quit. Do your own thing." He says, "I believe in you. I think you'll do great doing your own thing." I said, "Really?" "Yeah." And that was a piece that gave me confidence to say, "Yeah, it's time to go."
Wow, that's interesting. Good story. Love it. So you mentioned before, Jean, that you always wanted to do to become a solo artist. So you had a brief tenure with Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul, okay? And then how did that happen? That after that you became a solo artist?
I really, when I left the Plasmatics, actually, it was difficult. I was surprised that no record company would sign me. They said, unless you're going to do the same thing. You know?
Okay.
They said, yeah, we don't want you singing. I mean, singing? What are you talking about? You're blowing up cars. Just last week, now you want to sing. So nobody was interested. It was tough. And I got my first offer from Prince to join his band and for him to produce a solo record for me.
From
He
Prince?
was the first from
wow.
Prince.
Oh, wow.
He was the first one who reached out to me, his manager, right after I left the Plasmatics. I was actually surprised. I was like, well, what? Prince said I had started to follow Prince. He was starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to. I kind of felt at the time we had like a racial thing going in the States where it was very limited as to certain guys who were like us, kind of, light skinned and playing a little bit of rock and roll, and they were limited of who can get radio play.
Mm-hmm.
This went on for a very long time in America. Now it's changed, but back then it was really tough. So I kind of felt like if I do that, maybe he's just wants me so he could get me out of the way.
Of course, no competition. That's right.
Exactly.
That's
what I started thinking, because I knew he was a fan, and he was like, but in the end, I'm not saying that that's what it was, but that's what I felt at the time. Okay. And I hung out with Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, and they asked me, why don't you come with us? And I was like, I helped them find a bass player, but I didn't want to do that. So at that point, all of a sudden, my old manager, who managed Scary U.S. Bonds, came to me and he says, I'm working with Little Steven and with Springsteen to doing this new song. I said, oh, that's interesting. He said, I think you and Steven would be a great match. Why don't you, let me get you involved. You meet, maybe you guys start working on something together. Mm-hmm. So I met Steven, we started talking, and we really got along, and he told me, you're not going to get signed. Nobody's going to sign you. You're wasting your time, basically. He says, until you show some musical credibility and, something that can see those talents, it's not going to happen. So he said, I'm taking a little break from Bruce Springsteen to go work on, to go do a solo album. Why don't you come with me? And I'll, you come with me, we'll work together, we'll have fun, you'll be like my right-hand guy, a little bit like Bruce and Steven, And it just made sense. The way he put it, was kind of like, I trusted it. So
it clicked. That's right.
It clicked. And we did that. I did that for a while. And then he actually tried to get me a solo deal. It was difficult. He couldn't get it to quite happen either, to be honest. And when I finally, then I left Steven after a while. I said, I really want to be a solo artist. That's what I want to do. I don't, So I left. And after a while, I still couldn't get a deal. When I was ready to completely give up, I got a call from ABBA's company, Polar, in Sweden. And they offered me a singles deal. They had heard one of my songs. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I was about to go. And one publicist told me, I have a guy you should meet. A manager named Gary U.S. Bonds. I mean, not Gary U.S. Bonds, Gary Kurfürst. Mm-hmm. Gary Kurfürst, he said he brought Jimi Hendrix over for things. He's a very, well-known guy, reputable, and he loves things that are different. He ended up, doing Debbie Harry, the Ramones, and different people. He was very unique. So I said, okay, I'll meet with him. I went and met with him. He signed, and he told me, okay, you haven't gotten a deal that I didn't try. So he said, don't sign a deal in Sweden. You can go there, go eat köttbullar or meatballs or whatever you want.
But don't sign the deal.
Don't sign anything. I'll have you a deal in a month. I said, really? And he was right. All of a sudden, I'm in Sweden, and I get a call the next week. And he says, I'm here in England with Richard Branson, and he loves your records. I mean, he loves the material that
your music, yeah.
And he loves your music, and he's ready to sign you.
Wow.
So next thing you know, he gave us our own label, the whole thing. And that was my first signing. And from there, it moved on to Columbia Records for the United States. Same call. There's a guy here, the president of Columbia Records, who signed Michael Jackson. He loves the music. He wants to sign me. The next thing you know, I had a European deal, a worldwide deal, and an American deal. Wow. And I had complete creative control and freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. And that was the beginning.
The floodgates open, right? So
the
then
floodgates open, finally.
Awesome, awesome. So when you released your first album, Drums Along the Mohawk, in 1985, that same year, Jean, you threw it out of the park with the widely successful track "Feel the Heat," chosen by the one and only Sylvester Stallone for his film Cobra. Can you tell us the story?
I remember that.
Yeah, it's funny how things work in life. All that suffering, and all of a sudden,
that's right.
Like
exactly.
you said, the floodgates kind of start to open. It was like when I was just about destitute, just about to lose my partner. That's when all of a sudden, money I'd never seen started coming in, of course, because you had deals from this and deals from that. And Sly Stone, we're shooting the video for Feel the Heat. And there's a woman named Mary Lambert, a great video director. She actually did most of the Madonna videos. She did some Prince videos. She's done a lot of great videos. Also films like Pet Sematary, other things. So she was editing the video over in Burbank. Okay, I think it was one of our studios, and Stallone happened to be there editing Cobra.
Okay,
walks by the studio, sees my video playing, which actually had a Cobra in it, and he all of a sudden calls up my manager and says, I want this. I want this song to be the song for my new film Cobra. And at the time, Rambo held the record for the biggest release of any film in the history at the time, meaning the most theaters, the most this and everything. And so Cobra actually had a bigger budget even, and it was going to be a huge release, and it was just surprising and fantastic. He used my song for the trailers, he used my song for everything. We did the video with both of us together, all kinds of things, and that was a big boost for me.
And I guess that when Sly wants something, he gets it, right? So he goes for it.
That's right. I believe so. That's right. He went for it. I'll always be thankful to him for that. That was a great thing.
Now the floodgates continued to open because around that time you started to work with Paul Stanley on the Animalize album.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about that. Was this more of a business relationship, or did you and Paul become friends?
We started as friends. It's funny how this worked. During that time, now things are starting to happen. You're making a little money, blah, blah, blah. So I'm hanging around, and I'm at different clubs, and I go to a club called Heartbreak. It was a club downtown New York, and it was a place where a lot of celebrities hung out there. And actors, Drew Barrymore was like this tall at the time, and all these people would be at Brooke Shields. I mean, dancing with Brooke Shields, I remember,
Wow.
And her mom was there, of course, and all these different people. It was great, and Paul was there. So he came up to me. He said, "Hey, you're that guy from the Plasmatics." I said, "Yeah." And I looked at him and I said, I couldn't. He said, "Paul from Kiss."
Who are you?
And, he had makeup, because
right.
I'd only seen them with makeup. I didn't know for sure, And so I'm Paul Stanley from Kiss. I said, this is fantastic. This is wild. And so we started talking, and it was a dance club, so we're like dancing around, and we had a lot of similar things that we could feel. It was a vibe, And so we exchanged numbers, and then from there we started hanging out. We'd go to these cool restaurants, we'd go to clubs, we went to, all different things, concerts, whatever, as friends. Never even discussed writing anything or doing anything. It's not till about a year later, I believe, that one day we're at his apartment hanging out, and he came out with the guitar. Why don't we try to write something? And that's where it started.
So what was that process like working with Paul?
Oh, that was great. It was, I at the time, before we started working together, he had always, like, he'd take me to, he'd have a meeting with his manager, I'd go up there with him. He'd be doing some things, with the band. I'd go there. I'd go to the, so I was involved in what was going on. And so when we started writing that song, it was just on a little 4-track recorder, sitting in his apartment, eating Chinese food. And we wrote those in the night, and it just came together. We spent a little more time writing lyrics. I could remember I'd be home on the phone and he'd be on the phone. We'd be thinking of the lyrics.
Really?
How about this? How about that? How about this? How about that? And we went through, it was funny. We went through all of that, and it was a great thing. And all of a sudden, we just went into the studio, and they asked me to play bass because I had played bass on the demo. And so Paul was like, well, why don't you just play it? Gene was cool with it. I had met Gene through this whole thing, even before, and we hit it off. He liked me. It was always a fun relationship. He liked the Plasmatics, so he eventually ended up working with Wendy. But so it was a good relationship, and so I could just be in the studio. It was very casual, and it wasn't something where I knew that I would be credited as a bass player. It was just really almost like a favor. It was like, but I didn't look at it as a favor because to me it was an honor, Yeah, so it was like, can you play bass on stage? No problem. And nobody knew about it for years, to be honest, as far as the bass playing. But the songwriting, that was a good boost for me. And at the time, like you said, it's the floodgates open because I started writing with a lot of people around that same time. Very different people, and being out of the band, all kinds of people started to call me. I played guitar with Cameo's record, or this one was cool, and
everybody.
It was very the Ramones, Nona Hendrix, the John Waite thing that we're talking about. Even so it was getting very interesting at this point.
And then Jean, thanks to your of course your talent, your vision, and everything, you continue to contribute with Kiss on Asylum. And in this case, what do you recall about your contribution to songs like Who Wants to Be Lonely and All Night?
I'm happy about those contributions. Those were, again, at that, Paul and I even got closer. So we became more familiar with each other, at the time, because we were really hanging out now. I mean, we were like, so you guys were friends. No, we were really friends. We hung out all the time at that time. We were like almost every other night, or we'd be going somewhere. I mean, we actually moved to LA at the same exact time together. We both made, we really spent a lot of time. So for those songs, it was, again, the same situation. I didn't know, in fact, that I didn't know I'd be credited. Just went into the studio, Who Wants to Be Lonely, played bass on it. We wrote the songs the same way, in the apartment with the Chinese food. Nothing fancier.
The recipe.
And we bounced everything on the 4-track, we played type of the bass on it, we bounced the 2-track, then do it again, and then we do background vocals and the vocals, and that's it. We had a very good model of it. Then we'd go into a rehearsal studio with the band, and he'd have, because they were very meticulous about how they recorded their things. And Paul and Gene were very meticulous. Everything was really well organized. They're cutting drums these days. They're doing this. It was very organized. And so that was fun. We'd go to hear the band for the first time playing your song.
Of course, of course.
It's like, hey, I wrote that. That's kind of surreal.
Yeah. And not only that, those songs, it has your stamp all over it, but you became part of the Kiss family, because we were talking about how special, the Kiss fans are. And we adopted you like, one kind of a super legend, working with the band. Even to this day, you must be crossed in the street, by Kiss fans, thanking you and, recognizing you for everything that you've done for the band. It's amazing.
I really appreciate that. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling, because they have a wonderful family, and the family is huge, strong, powerful, and dedicated, and loyal. It's an amazing family. It's amazing how this happened, and it's people like you who created this, they didn't ask you to do it. It's just the love for the music and I guess the concept, the whole thing that made it so important that your wall looks the way it looks. You know what I mean? I think it's a great thing. So I couldn't have asked for more to be a part of that family, in addition to doing my own things, but it's a great thing to be a part of.
Super cool.
Oh, and the amazing thing is that you worked with so many different families, so many artists. I mean, we mentioned John Waite, Bruce Springsteen, Pretenders, Lionel Richie, even NSYNC. You mentioned the Ramones. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, the Ramones was similar, because coming from the whole Plasmatics scene and downtown CBGB's, Max's Kansas City, we'd all kind of hang around the same place around Plasmatics time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had already met the Ramones. I knew them. We were friends. We had been friends for a fair amount of years before I ended up working with them as well. The thing, actually, Gary Kerfus was managing the Ramones. And one day he just approached us and he said, I think he was so casual like that too. He was like, I think John should produce you guys. It's like, what do you think? And they were like,
really?
Yeah, we love it. Listen, okay, great. And the next thing you know, I found myself in the studio with them, and it was quite the job, because each person, Johnny wanted this, Dee Dee, was great. They really count the guy, Dee Dee. This guy was great with lyrics, and his mind just worked so fast that just like things were just like. But there was a lot of drama, girlfriend drama, calls in the middle of the night. Oh, I don't know if I can have strings on that. Oh, we don't have, and then Joey would call you, and then sometimes I was pulling my hair out. I'm not going to lie.
They made you work hard.
They made me work. I made me work. And I watched the record company just looking at me going, have fun. Just get the record better be great. They looked at it, and my manager too, but he had confidence, and I think we made a very good record. We recorded it in New York, and then we ended up going to Sweden. Actually, I brought Joey over to Sweden to go do most of the vocals for that album, Animal Boy.
Oh,
and that was a very unique experience for him. Johnny was over. I believe Johnny came over. He didn't stay long because Johnny was very impatient. He'd play a few guitar tracks, and I'd have things like suspended chords and different chords that I would come up with and to put in their music, because I felt that was a great contrast to have punk, similar to being in the Plasmatics, to have that punk element, but put other elements. I had some keyboards like bells on Not So Goes to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It was completely, I don't know where it came from in my brain, but they loved it, and we just went for it. And Johnny would just sometimes just say, I'm not going to play that. You play it. All right. He'd say, I'm doing 2 takes, no more. After that, you play it. So it was very interesting. But it was a fun experience, and also a great family, like you say. It's a strong family. The Ramones are, a great legendary band. I'm really grateful to have a part of that as well.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Jean, you must have gotten, from fans how you were such an influence in their lives, because I got to tell you, I've been a Kiss fan since 1976, and doing this show and talking to various celebrities, Kiss fans, in our interviews and fan profiles, I start to connect the dots of moments in my life that these people have crossed through. And you're one of them.
Okay.
I mean, with your contributions with Kiss, your contributions with Sylvester Stallone on Cobra, and now also with Pet Sematary, one of the highest charting songs. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, again, it's funny how things go around, because Mary Lambert at the time was producing the film Pet Sematary. Mm-hmm. And so at one point they just they liked what I did on the record, and for that particular thing they said, the record company also, everybody wanted to bring me back in to produce that song, because it was a big deal. It was going to be a big film song for them, a real big deal for them. Stephen King, everything. So they didn't want to play. Let's get this right, And there was a great article actually by a guy named Jorge. Esteban, who wrote, is that Jorge Esteban? No, it wasn't. I've got, what's the guy's name? He was an engineer. Anyway, it's on a page called Sound on Sound.
Okay.
If you get a chance to take a look. And it's a full description of the recording of Pet Sematary. I'm talking about down to the microphone that I used for the guitar.
Oh, wow. Really?
I mean, yes, he went through every detail. I was shocked. And exactly at this time, that at 12:34 p.m., Jean's car was parked on the street in New York, and he got towed. And then we did this, and we came back in and recorded at this time.
Oh, my God.
And it showed it was the most expensive single. It cost more than most of their albums. I would bring it to Sweden and have a studio and different things, and really, it was a great experience to do that too, that Pet Sematary. And I was surprised that all of a sudden, you're right, it's the highest charting song that the Ramones have ever had, and it's again something I'm thankful and grateful for, because when you're doing these things, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know that it's going to become very big. You just do it. You put what you put into it, and that's it. It's actually, you don't think that a song like that is going to be, a hit single, really. It's the Ramones, it's punk rock, and even though it's pretty musical, that song, I have to say.
It is.
That's pretty much how the whole thing went, and it was good. It worked out very well for all of us. Yeah.
And with so many things, and of course, with time we start, forgetting things. But do you recall having played on that song, maybe adding a layer or guitar or bass or something?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. To be honest,
to put
a little bit of things, because after everybody recorded their parts, a lot of times I'd be left with everything with my engineer alone, and then we'd listen to things, and some things right.
You fix it.
It's like, our bass is not good. Okay, let's fix that. All right, that guitar part, let me do it. And they were really cool about that at the time, because again, that's not something that we talked about. It's just,
of course,
you did what you needed to do to make the record what the record needed to be.
Of course. Hey, Jean, so, you were, after this, you were involved in so many different production, projects like music, films, TV, video, everything. But let me just fast forward a bit. So we're now in 2017, and you decided to release Rock Masterpieces Volume 1 and 2 through your own company, Voodoo Island. So why have you decided to release such material?
I found that, when you do a lot of things like I do, even as an artist, like Voodoo X, Crown of Thorns, and all these different things, people get confused sometimes, and they were like, oh, Jean Beauvoir will Feel the Heat. That's one thing.
True.
No, I can't be the same guy from Voodoo X. It's a whole different world. Oh, it's not the guy from Crown. Is that really the same guy? Oh, is that the guy who wrote for Kiss? And they just don't put it together. Mm-hmm. So, and one day I was sitting at a friend's house in Sweden, and he said, I'm looking at Jean Beauvoir on Spotify, but you have no music here. And I said to myself, wait a minute, I've been killing myself for 20 years, and it's more than 200 albums. It's actually closer to 500 at this point.
Wow.
That I'm involved in. In other words, not always of my doing, but, involved in other records. Somebody recorded my song or something. So it's that you have a part of in some way or some fashion. And he said, there's nothing on Jean Beauvoir here at all. And I looked, and there was nothing. It's like my solo album. That's it. And I said, that's a problem. I've got to fix this. And I think that I need to start to move things together. At that point, I decided to really focus on me as a solo artist again, because I felt that I went away from that. Mm-hmm. Why, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I felt a little more comfortable to be a part of something. So I would put together a project like Crown of Thorns. But in reality, I played a lot of the instruments on a lot of the records, Same thing with, the Voodoo X. I do that because I like the concept of doing something for Haiti, for voodoo, the culture, because my uncle was a big voodoo priest. So, but then I decided to reel it in and bring it all back and I put a little bit of different things that I'd done because I own all the masters that belong, and I did a lot of it. I did most of it. So I felt that it was a way to show people that it wasn't just the solo record. There's also stuff it's also Crown of Thorns, which was my project. There's also Voodoo X. That's why I put the record together like that.
Okay. And so that basically it's a collection of all the work that you've done over the years,
That's right.
Okay.
As an artist.
Okay.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
I hope that, they didn't come across like that. And
no. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you were right. Sometimes, your diversity, not only as a musician, but as a producer, as an executive also, it makes you get into different stuff that at a point in time, it's exciting, but of course, it's not the same as being a solo artist. So of course you're tempted to try different things, but I think you did the right thing just to get back to the roots and release your songs and your stuff in something that everybody can have then in their hands.
And have it, yes. I think that was really well put. That's exactly, and especially you mentioned the executive. Going years after playing with Steven, I ended up running his company as the CEO, which was Renegade Nation. So we ended up we had 2 channels on Sirius Satellite. We had the 2 of the first channels. We had the radio show was syndicated to 200 stations in the U.S. plus countries around the world. We did touring. We did all kinds of things. We had management of bands. We had a label, and it was a lot to handle. And I would meet people, and they wouldn't know because I didn't have a Mohawk at the time. I took a break from that, and they didn't know. And all of a sudden, I'd get an email back or a call. Hey, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you. I didn't realize that you were that guy, that you were you until I put it together. I thought you were a suit. Business guy. And I'd go, no, okay. So, that happens. People can get very confused.
Of course, when you do so many things. And what are you up to these days, Jean? What are you working on? What have you done lately? What's coming up?
I have a lot of things going as usual. I did a duet with a German artist. It's basically a guy named Tom Falk. It's not, Falk is from a very famous punk band from Germany called Lustfinger. So they did an anniversary record, and we did a duet, a German-English duet that was released not that long ago.
Okay.
I just recorded another duet with a great girl from Finland. That's anyway. So it's and different people that I'm doing things with. I have a song coming out on a Kiss Kiss cover record, actually. I don't know the name of the album yet because he actually never told me, come to think of it. And but you'll find out soon enough because I'm sure being in the Kiss Army, you'll see what that is. I have a few records coming out. I wrote my book. So my book was released.
Okay.
And as of right now, I just had a great film director who reached out to me, who read the book, loved it, and said he wants to do a documentary.
Oh, nice. That would be awesome. Wow.
That would be awesome. So he just flew into town last week and spent the week with me. And we down here and we, started talking about the concept. And the funny thing is, he just finished the Prince documentary. There you go. It's a smart, the world just keeps going, like this. But so that's something that I'm working on as well. And I am planning to record and release a new album, a new rock album. And I'm going to see if something happens. This is not, in stone yet, but I'm speaking to somebody about a horror film that they just did that's about to come out. And I may include some of my songs from that record into that film, if you know what I'm saying, where it would almost conflict, maybe it could be a soundtrack to that film in a way. It's not a done deal yet. We're in discussion, so it's not a guarantee, so don't count on it. But either way, I will be releasing a new rock record probably by next year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
so
and I'm touring. I'm heading to Mexico on September 1st and 2nd to play actually at the Kiss Lounge in Mexico
Yes, we
City.
saw that.
Yeah, go with Kiko.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You
Good
know
friend.
Kiko?
Yes.
Of course we do. Okay, yeah.
Too crazy. You guys are too much. You know everything. It's a real family. Kiko.
Oh, he's so awesome, that guy. So awesome.
Oh, man.
He just seemed so enthusiastic. And so it was great the way he, got in touch with me and everything to do that. So I may be doing some other dates after that as well. We're discussing it, South America and everything. I didn't tour so much this year because I actually had a surgery, but it was fine.
Okay.
I had actually a spine problem, but everything
You're doing
got
good
fixed.
now?
Now I'm in full shape and I'm ready to rock again.
Nice.
Our bodies start to wear out from all that jumping
course.
around and craziness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like my body was starting to say, "No, stop."
Enough.
Now I said, "Okay, I'll fix you."
There you go. Nice.
And then that's it. So I'm planning now from, especially the documentary just came into play, not more than 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that I actually got that call. Mm-hmm. So that's going to play a part in how things progress, if you know what I'm saying, how we work things around each other. But I'm still here and I still plan to do a lot of stuff, and I'll still be writing and releasing different records and releasing my own.
Well, let me tell you, if there's someone in the music industry who deserves a documentary, that's you, my friend. I'm telling you, that's you. That's you.
Thank you very much.
And it's going to be so interesting.
Oh yeah, my goodness.
Yeah.
From our discussions, I think it could be interesting because sometimes all this stuff just happens and years go by and you just do. I just do. I get called in Sweden, and I had K-pop hits also because I went to Sweden, and my publisher at the time said you should come here and write some K-pop. I got the great writers, so I'd go to Sweden and I'd spend 2 weeks writing with 10 different groups of people, and just then the song ends up here, song ends up there, song ends up here, because I enjoy doing it, and people come here to work with me, and that's what I do.
Makes you happy. That's right.
Yeah. Hey, Jean, before we let you go, can you talk a little bit about Jackknife? I found this album in the wild. I actually screamed in the record store. Like, oh my God. Oh man, I've been playing it, since I contacted you almost every day. It's just an incredible record. I love it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, the record didn't have the Stallone push, that's the other, but I think it ended up being, it was a really good record. And at the same time, I ended up leaving the label right at that time because the guy who signed me at Columbia really understood me. But then another guy came in who was my A&R guy, and he was confused. He was like, John, we don't know if you're on the black floor, the white floor, R&B, or this. It's too confusing. You have to figure out, you should be doing more R&B. You're a black artist. You should be doing R&B. And I said to my manager, we have to get off this label.
Yeah, we gotta get
out of here.
We gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting off that label. And I re-signed with Columbia Records, but out of Europe and England with Voodoo X.
Okay.
So I didn't make a solo record next. I ended up doing Voodoo X again with the same label, but signed from a different place.
Good move. Wise
The
man.
funny thing is that they had a big meeting in Miami, I was told, where they have the annual Columbia Records getting together to discuss their projects. And the deal is Voodoo X was just blown so out of proportion. I had a habit of getting into those kind of deals where it became bigger and bigger and more people want to get involved, which is not always a good thing, to be quite honest with you. And when I did that, Germany could not sign it alone. And I was partners with Uwe Fahrenkrog Peterson from Nena. He loves rock. That's what he wants to do, So that a lot of people who did different things that they were like that. So it was almost a partnership, and the UK had to come in to put this deal together. So when they had that meeting in Miami, all of a sudden Germany and UK gets up, and we have this new signing, Voodoo X. And the American guy gets up and says, You can't sign him. We just dropped him.
Yes, we can. I love it.
It's too late. He signed. That was a pretty funny thing. But I miss that manager of mine. We used to do some interesting
moves.
Interesting moves. You have to in this business.
Of
you know,
course.
it's like, which is one of the reasons why I made a very big point at the very beginning of my career. I said, I don't want to be, first of all, I want to be a solo artist and self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to do, I wanted to have hits as a producer, as a songwriter, and as an artist, completely individually of each other. So that if things are not working here, I can do this. If things are not working here. So somehow you can always do something instead of only depending on having a hit or you know, things like that. It just felt too dangerous to me, you know.
Well, I think it all comes to confidence and, you know, having a vision and, you know, conviction on what you have, you know, and persevere, because, you know, saying no to Prince, that's quite something, man. So when you said no to Prince,
well, you know,
of course, you know, that's right. Then things started to happen, right, for you.
Yeah. I was very clear of what I wanted to do, you know, and that's what you have to do in life. If you really want something, you have to go for it, because sometimes you can end up making mistakes. I mean, a little after this whole Prince thing, I had a Michael Jackson offer too, to come and do one of his big videos. I think it was Dirty Diana. And my manager and I discussed it and said, no, you can't do that. You just can't do it. You're signed as a solo artist. If you go do that, then people are going to know you as Michael Jackson's bass player, or they're not going to know you, you know?
Yeah,
and once you have that stigma, as big as he is, you will be known for that, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe that wasn't, you know, maybe I was too afraid of that. It was more, again, that same situation of like the Prince thing, you know, it's too hard. Yeah. Once you're there, it's so big that it's hard to escape.
Yeah, you're caught up there. Yeah.
And people don't see you. No, he's not a solo artist. He's Michael Jackson's bass player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And matter of fact, did you know who Michael Jackson's last bass player was?
No.
There you go.
Exactly.
You got it. To the point.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Good one. That was a good one. Love it.
Jean, I got to tell you, I'm an ethics teacher. I teach high school, and I really want to show this episode to my students because there's a pattern I caught throughout our discussion this past hour, and it's that throughout your career, I feel, I think that the industry tried to pigeonhole you constantly into specific categories, and you always said no. I'm gonna spread my wings, and I'm gonna be who I am, despite what anybody says. And look at the amazing career that you have as a result of that courage that you showed.
I think you're right about that. I was very adamant about that. I just felt that too many people were staying in these little holes, you know. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with Prince one time because we did, you know, speak after that. He offered me a couple of times to join him. And he would say, he loved rock and roll. He wanted to do rock. Matter of fact, if you look at the very end of his life, he's out playing all these tours, playing so much guitar that people were starting to get a headache. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, we want to hear the hits. We don't want to hear you playing solo guitar all night, you know? But he really wanted to do that. He told me I'd be doing rock, but I wouldn't make any money. And he wasn't wrong. You know what I mean? It's like it's a risk, you know, because you're doing something that's completely against the grain, you know. But I always believed in that, and it's a personal goal that I set up. Besides being a producer, artist, you know, these different things that I'm doing, I also felt that I wanted to have things in different music, because to me, a good song is a good song. You know, it's not a matter of, you know, you could take a Backstreet Boy and I could produce a
it's not about the genre
song, and I'll make it sound like a hard rock song. You know, I mean, it makes no difference. The song's good, it's good.
Yeah.
So something that I really liked that I could be involved with, like NSYNC was pretty much one of the biggest boy bands. NSYNC and Backstreet Boys are the only guys who ever went diamond, for example. So that's one thing. Lionel Richie is a crooner. Debbie Harry is Blondie. That's one of the, then the Ramones, then Kiss, all these things are all different categories.
Yeah.
The only thing I haven't hit yet, I've even had hip hop hits. The only thing and a dance hit. Actually, the only thing is country. So I'm working on that.
I'm working on
country album.
No, I mean to work with a country artist or do something, be involved, So there's some fantastic country songs. I love music as a whole, and I think it's a lesson, like you said, for students that be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Do what you want to do. Believe in yourself, and that's how the world progresses. If everybody stayed in the same place, it would be a bunch of rope. You can't.
Yeah.
No, you are a true artist, my friend, a true artist.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
So, Jean, before we drop the curtain on this episode, we touched on Kiss fans. So, to close the show, what are your thoughts about the Kiss Army?
I think it's a wonderful thing. I think that they are extremely lucky to have such a loyal group of fans. And I'm pretty sure that they know that, but I hope they don't take that for granted because it's a wonderful thing. And nobody else has accomplished anything like this. An army of people around the world that are unified in a way, but still independent, who all support something that they love. And that's what has kept them alive for all these years and enabled them to be able to tour. Now, I think this last tour, from what Paul told me, because I still speak to Paul, we're still in touch. We actually gave a song to a band called Lordy, actually, not too long ago. And their EP went, it was the highest charting EP in Germany not too long ago. It was an older song that Paul and I had written, kind of almost an R&B-ish dance kind of song that Lordy wanted because they wanted to make an album that had these different things in it. Like a Beat to the Honey. So, so Paul and I, we speak about things all the time. And I just think it's just a wonderful thing to have this fantastic army all over the world.
Yeah. Nice.
Jean, this is, it's been a true honor and pleasure to have you in the show. You're such a lovable person, and we could be staying forever, telling stories and chatting. But I know you're pretty busy, so we can't thank you enough to be part of the show. And if you ever come to Montreal, or if you're playing in New York or Jersey or in that area, we're gonna come and see you. We want to meet you in person.
Fantastic.
That would be awesome.
I'd love to get to Montreal for sure. I need to do some research about what festivals there are out there and what may be something that might be good, because I've always wondered why I haven't spent more time in Canada. And it's more my fault, because I think way back in the beginning, you had some Much Music, I think it was, and some other shows that were very big that all really supported me in Canada. But I didn't tour that much. I probably should have spent more time touring. That's a regret, and like every year to spend more time touring to keep the live thing going and get to Montreal. But hopefully I can still get to Montreal. So.
Oh yeah, we can't wait to meet you. Yeah, absolutely. It would be awesome.
I can't wait to meet you guys. It's been a fun interview. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
It's been fantastic. And not only your stories, but all of your stories had a lesson to be taught. And I thought that was something very valuable. And I hope our listeners really appreciate that, because it was just amazing listening to your life philosophies through your career and through your musicianship. Just amazing.
Thank you. I'm going to sleep well tonight.
You're a good boy.
You have to be reminded sometimes of things that you've done. It's wonderful. It's great to hear. It really is.
Amazing.
It makes all the hard work worthwhile.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks once again for being on the show, my good friend.
Thank you.
Okay, and hopefully I'll see you in not too long.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a pleasure.
All right.
Thank
And my best to all you Kiss fans out there. All right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
All right.
So, to
bye-bye.
the Kiss Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, Plasmatics, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to make yourself heard. Leave us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. See you all soon, Kiss Army.